welcome to my channel. Today's going to be a little bit different because I'm discussing something that's actually local to me. There was a horrible incident that happened at a concert venue in my area, and I really need to talk about it. But before we get into it, if you like commentary videos of the latest and lamest things here on the internet, please like this video and subscribe to my channel. I upload once weekly, as well as going live a few times a week to play video games. So thanks so much to anybody who supports my channel. I really appreciate it. It's not a phase. I may not be going to as many concerts as I used to when I was younger, but I've been to a lot of shows. I have been to many concerts, both big and small, local and touring bands across many genres. I've even gone several times across state lines to travel to see a show that wasn't coming close enough to me. And I really mean it when I say it's not a phase. I'm actually going out of state next weekend to see my favorite band. My boyfriend is going to drive us 5 hours each way to another state so that I can see the Front Bottoms again, because I've only seen them one time and I cannot wait. They're so good. I saw them for the first time last year and it is so exciting to see them again. All of this to say that I have my emo credentials. I have seen my fair share of good and bad practices from venues, and I am very aware of the rules and the standards that these artists who play at these venues are supposed to uphold. Unfortunately, there are some artists who think that they are above the rules and that the rules don't apply to them, and when that happens, a lot of times they're not the ones who suffer the consequences of that choice. John Floreani, the singer of the pop-punk band Trophy Eyes, made a decision on April 30th not to follow the rules of the venue that he was performing at, and that decision changed a woman's life forever. When this horrible incident happened, Trophy Eyes was performing at Mohawk Place in Buffalo, New York. This is a venue I've been to at least 3 times, maybe more. It is a very, very small venue. It is standing room only. It's only a capacity of 237 people. That's how small it is. The stage is just 2 feet off the ground. There's no barricades. There's no buffer between the crowd and the performer. You're just standing right there, and the heads of most of the people that are standing are going to come up to like midsection of the person performing. So it's very, very tiny. Just a couple of minutes into their first song, John goes from singing into the mic stand in the middle of the stage to very suddenly, without any warning to the crowd themselves, he jumps and turns so that his back is facing the crowd and basically propelled himself backwards, 180 flip backwards into the crowd for them to catch him. The video itself might seem innocuous if you didn't know what happened after. When he dips down after first landing in the crowd, he's actually on top of a woman's neck. You can actually see Bird, the woman who he landed on, just before he jumps into the crowd. You can see her at the front towards the barricade. She has pink hair and she's jumping around and singing. It looks like singing and like dancing to the music just before this happens. So he jumped ass first into an unsuspecting crowd, and then when he landed and dipped down, it was because he had landed on her neck and she collapsed to the floor underneath his weight. She never got back up, and he was caught by the rest of the crowd and moved backwards, but she collapsed to the floor. Take this part with a grain of salt, but I did see some comments on a Reddit thread about this situation that claimed to have been there and heard her say after she fell that she was scared and that she couldn't move. She couldn't move her legs. She couldn't get up by herself. Right after he jumped, the music was cut and they stopped playing, and Bird was taken out of the crowd and was taken to UCMC, and she had to have a very extensive surgery because of this injury. For at least a few days after this happened, no one really knew what was going on. There was no announcement yet by the band or anyone from Bird's family. No one had come out to talk about it, so for a while, no one really knew what was happening, if she was okay, if she actually was paralyzed or not. But when I looked again today just to make sure that if there was any new news that I talked about it, it was confirmed that she is partially paralyzed. She lost the use of her legs, but she can still feel and use her arms and her torso. So she's only partially paralyzed. Luckily, it was not a full paralyzation of her entire body, because that would make things so much harder. Trophy Eyes did not make a statement about this situation until 4 days after it happened. Let's take a look at what they had to say. As the result of a tragic accident on the night of April 30th, a Trophy Eyes fan was injured at our Buffalo, New York show. We elected to immediately shut down the show as John accompanied them to the hospital with their family. Out of respect for the family, we have refrained from speaking about this publicly so far, but with the blessing of their family, we are now able to say how truly heartbroken we are to be here now. Our friend Bird is now in recovery, but still has a long road ahead for them. A GoFundMe has been set up by their family. You can donate below. This situation has shaken us all to our core, and we ask for patience while we look to help Bird navigate this difficult time. Please keep Bird in your thoughts. We remain in close contact with them and will expand on this as new news arrives. Yours faithfully, Trophy Eyes. I have a lot of issues with this statement. They would have their fans believe that it was just a tragic accident that just randomly happened to her. But no, this was an intentional choice that the frontman of this band made to jump into a crowd at a venue so small that it's unsafe to do so without any warning at all. And he, even if he didn't mean to, he harmed someone with that intentional action. They also talk about John accompanying Bird to the hospital with her family after this incident. And by not mentioning that he's the person who caused her to get hurt, it paints it in a completely different light than if you actually knew the details. It makes it seem like, oh, she got hurt in the crowd somehow because of someone else that's like in the pit, right? And that she goes to the hospital, that the singer's nice enough to stop the show and go with her just to make sure she's okay. But that is not what happened. And by intentionally leaving out these details, they are trying to paint it in a better light and try to look better to their fans that weren't there and didn't see this happen. They call Bird their friend and talk about how heartbroken they are that this has happened. And I think it's kind of disingenuous, you know? I think they knew they had to make a statement, and they're trying to humanize themselves as much as possible and be the good guys in this situation when they're just not. They're just not, you know what I mean? Like, the way that they went about addressing this situation is not good. I didn't know this band before now. Like, I had heard of them, but I didn't know anything about them or ever listened to them. So I'm like kind of a neutral slate on this one. All I know is this situation is messed up, and the way they tried to paint it online is not good. In between the two sections of their statement where they talk about Bird, they sandwich in a spot in the middle where they talk about how this situation is shaking them to their core. They may have to make sure to mention how Bird getting paralyzed has affected them. And I think that that was not a good look, especially when they didn't even say, "I'm sorry." And you know why they didn't say "I'm sorry"? Because it can be used in court as an admission of guilt. That you feel sorry because you're involved in something that is making you feel bad. So they won't even say "I'm sorry" to this woman, but they're talking about how it affected them, this situation, this completely preventable situation. The biggest problem that I have with this statement is that they imply that the band themselves shut down the show, that once he jumped into the crowd and they saw that she was hurt, that the band themselves stopped playing, and that then the singer John went with her to the hospital. But that is not what happened. The venue has a policy in place that if you break any of those major rules, like no stage diving, no crowd surfing, and you know some of the other things that they have banned because they're dangerous, if you break those rules, they have a power switch to the stage that they just shut it right off. You can't play anymore. And that is what happened that night. The band did not stop playing. The venue cut them off by turning off the power to all of their equipment. So at every turn, this band was smoothing the edges, leaving out details, and minimizing the situation to act like they had no culpability at all and weren't involved in what actually happened. And that they also did the right thing and, you know, shut the show and went to the hospital. I really think they didn't know that there was a video of what happened because they just lied. They just lied or like lied by omission in their statement to try to... They were probably getting a lot of emails or comments about it, like, what's going on? Why haven't you made a statement? And they knew they had to post something, but unfortunately what they posted really missed the mark. There's a very good reason why Mohawk Place is so strict about these rules. In 2011, an artist jumped from the stage into the crowd and knocked a man over. He hit his head and his back on the concrete floor and sustained major injuries from this. Mike Bird was 19 when he was paralyzed from the waist down. He originally said that he did not want to sue the venue, but he didn't have insurance at the time that this happened, and so his medical bills were insanely high. He could not afford them on his own, and he had to sue the venue just to be able to afford the treatment that he needed. Because of the ongoing lawsuits, Mohawk Place's owner lost his insurance. The provider just dropped him, and he could no longer afford any of it, so he actually had to just shut the place down. Within 2 years of this incident happening, he shut the doors to Mohawk Place. Mohawk Place was shut down for over a year before a new person bought it, renovated it, and then opened its doors again. But because of what happened to Mike Bird, they were very strict about these no crowd surfing and no stage diving rules. They put up signs everywhere, and it's likely that it's also in the contracts that these bands sign that you are not allowed to stage dive or to crowd surf because it is just too dangerous at Mohawk Place. They say that history repeats itself, and unfortunately in this case that is true. In both instances, someone dove off the stage into the crowd and injured a person named Bird. And it's really unfortunate to me that even after the first situation happened and the venue made massive changes because they wanted to be safer and not risk hurting anybody in the future, and then unfortunately this band comes in to play there who the singer thinks that he's so far above the rules that they don't apply to him, and that he can just make that same mistake and hurt another person after that had already happened in this place before. It's just so wild to me that it was the same venue, the same stage, the same incident, the same type of injury with the paralyzation of just their legs, and that they have the same name, Bird. After a GoFundMe was made to help fund the medical bills for Bird, the band donated $5,000 to the fund. And I'm glad they did, but I don't think that's enough. And I'm a little worried about if this goes to court because a lot of times if you accept any kind of money from the person who hurt you like this, they will see that as like an out-of-court settlement and be like, oh, well, they hurt you. They offered you $5,000. You accepted it. And that's it. You're done. You don't get anything more from them. And I just really hope that that isn't the case and that she can get more out of it. It just has me really worried because I've seen that happen before. And I really don't want that to happen to her. $5,000 is not enough to pay for all of the medical expenses she incurred from this guy landing on her head. Unfortunately, while researching this topic, I found some evidence that Trophy Eyes has disregarded the safety of their fans more than once on social media. About 6 weeks before Bird was paralyzed, when they first announced this tour that they're on right now, they made a post on their Twitter, I will not call it X, on their Twitter account that says, unlike the last US tour, crowd surfing will be encouraged this time. So they are encouraging people to crowd surf at their shows, even though some of the venues, most likely all of them, because in this day and age, who is going to want to accept liability and allow them to do those things when they are dangerous? So I feel like probably they know they're not supposed to be encouraging crowd surfing and they're not supposed to stage dive, yet they said just a few weeks before this horrible accident that he caused by jumping into the crowd that they're encouraging these unsafe behaviors. I also want to discuss the top comment under their statement on Twitter. This is apparently some comments from Instagram that someone screenshotted. And apparently now, if you actually go over and try to look at this on Instagram, they've turned off the comments on that post so you can't see this anymore. But here's what it says. A person who went to their show says, "First time I ever heard of you guys was the concert in Atlanta tonight, and the lead singer kept encouraging mosh pits and crowd surfing, which made the majority of us who were there for Against the Current feel very unsafe and have to go to the sidelines, which is not fair because we were there before your crazy fans. I almost had a panic attack. I didn't even get the chance to find out if I liked your songs because I had to keep worrying about getting kicked in the head." Do you want to know what their professional and nice and courteous response to this person saying, "I felt unsafe in your crowd"? Their response was just, "Fuck you." I just can't believe that that's how they responded to someone saying that they felt unsafe in their crowd. You have a due diligence to these people who pay to see you to make sure it's a safe environment for them. And if that's how he's going to talk to somebody who wasn't a fan yet but kind of wanted to know if they liked their music and would have given them a chance otherwise if it wasn't so dangerous, if that's how he talks to someone who isn't a fan, how do you think that they would talk to somebody who is? Obviously, if they don't care about a non-fan, they're also not going to really care if it's a fan either, right? If someone else who is an actual fan says, I felt unsafe in your crowd, I guarantee you they'd probably have the same response because they think that appearing cool and encouraging these really dangerous behaviors is better than making sure that people are safe. Hey, just jumping in here quick to talk about the fact that they sold this exchange on a t-shirt. They sold this shirt for $40 at the merch stand. So not only do they disregard people feeling unsafe at their shows, they profit off of it too. The original post on Reddit has been deleted, but the screenshot and the post that shared it for discussion still exists if you want to look it up. Trophy Eyes obviously has a thing for disregarding the rules, and I understand, punk is all about disrespecting the rules and disrespecting authority, but these types of rules exist for a reason, so that people don't get hurt. And I can already hear the comments now. Oh, we can't have fun at shows anymore. We can't stage dive and we can't crowd surf. What are we supposed to do? Just stand there and do nothing? That's lame. And I get it, but that's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is there's a time and place for those activities, and Mohawk Place was not it. That venue is insanely small. Again, I cannot even describe to you how small that place is, especially when it's full of people, even if it's not all the way full. If you have 100 or 200 people in there, there is no room for that. You cannot stage dive. It will never be safe to do that in that venue. Some venues will allow artists to do these things as long as it's done safely. It's not always dangerous to do these things. It just depends on where you are in the setup of the venue. Most bigger artists that are going to be going into the crowd, they don't jump from the stage into the crowd because that momentum of jumping down into the crowd is what makes it so dangerous. What they do is they go to the barricade and they climb up into the crowd, and therefore the crowd is ready to receive them because they are seeing it happening as they're coming up, right? Everybody's ready, and there's not that momentum that can make it so dangerous. I can even give you an example from a show I've seen multiple times. 21 Pilots gets into the crowd almost every show that they do, and when they do it more than once usually. From the shows that I've seen them in, both in an arena and in a regular outdoor venue, they will not only climb over the barricade into the crowd like I explained before, but they also give these giant drums to the crowd to hold, and then they lean over the crowd to play the drums. And then not only that, they have a platform that has a full drum set on it that they hand to the crowd, and so the crowd holds it up, and then the guy gets onto the crowd and gets onto the platform and plays the drums while they hold him up. It's so cool, and as someone who's been one of the people to help hold it, it was so exciting, and it was done safely. Every single person in the crowd that was being a part of this and holding something or holding them up knew ahead of time that it was going to be happening. They do it very well. It's a great show. It's a good experience, but they aren't hurting anybody because they do it safely. 21 Pilots do these things very safely. They are professionals who do it sometimes on a daily basis, and in a place where there's a lot of space above the crowd. There's lots of people, like enough people to catch them, as opposed to a small venue, and that they are all ready and aware that they are about to receive either a person or a drum or a platform. They always say it over the microphone multiple times. So that is the only right way to do it. If you are going against the venue's rules just to seem cool or give a good experience instead of doing it safely, you are begging for something bad to happen to somebody. Now, I'm not the fun police. We can have fun at shows, but there's a right way and a wrong way to do it. Concerts are meant to be an experience, but what kind of experience are we having if we go to a concert and the person next to us is severely injured just moments into the set because a band member jumped on them? That's not an experience. It's horrendous. We can have fun and do cool things at shows without having to risk our lives for it. The rules are there to keep everyone safe, and hopefully this is a lesson to anybody who's been doing the same things that John has been doing, where he disregards the rules and thinks they don't apply to him, and thinks that he could never hurt somebody. It would never happen to me. I'd never injure somebody by jumping into the crowd. It's a very foolish way of thinking, and it not only could cost someone their livelihood, but their life. John is really lucky that Bird only got paralyzed. And I don't say only paralyzed to downplay what she's going through. I'm sure it's horrible. But I say only paralyzed because it could have been so much worse. He could have killed her. He could have snapped her neck in front of everybody. She could have fallen to the floor that day dead and not just paralyzed. He is very lucky that his negligence did not lead to him becoming a murderer. Hey guys, Editing Brie here. I recorded the clips for this video about 2 days ago now, and I wanted to discuss something I saw online over the last couple days, and it's the comments on Reddit are unreal. The amount of people that are fighting tooth and nail to defend what happened right now as just a freak accident and something that can happen at any show to anybody is kind of absurd. They're saying that every venue has a ban on these activities, yet they happen at every show anyway. But that's just not the case. The amount of comments I saw talking about, oh, if you think that crowd surfing and moshing should be banned, then you're not punk, and if you're scared, we don't care, because we're not going to change. The culture's not going to change just because you're scared. The thing is we're not talking about moshing and crowd surfing. Those things, while dangerous, and people do get hurt from doing them, it's not that dangerous. It's not as dangerous as what happened to Bird. Stage diving is a whole other thing because of the height difference and the amount of momentum of jumping onto someone as opposed to being lifted up into the crowd to crowd surf. There's a huge difference, and we're not talking about crowd surfing and moshing right now, but the amount of people that want to argue about it in the comments is crazy. I just wanted to comment about that because I really thought it was nuts that people are trying to defend him just because, quote unquote, that's the culture. We need to ditch that mindset because every show I've ever been to, the etiquette has always been safety first while also having fun. If someone is getting too crazy, you're supposed to do something about it. You can't hurt people at a show and say it's justified because it's the culture. Just like the artist can't jump from the stage and hurt people and say that's the culture. It's not okay. You can be punk or emo or hardcore or any other label you have for yourself in this genre without being devoid of empathy for others. You should not value releasing your tension and anger over someone else's safety and well-being. If others getting hurt by your hand at a show is the only way you can release your tension and anger at the world, you need therapy. Period. And victim blaming someone for getting paralyzed by an artist's negligence because they were standing at center barricade is unhinged. The fact of the matter is he jumped into an unknowing crowd from only 2 feet above them just 2 minutes into the first song and landed ass first on the head and neck of the smallest person in that crowd and paralyzed her. Nothing excuses that. There is no defense. Bird, I'm so sorry that this happened to you. I can't even imagine what you're going through right now. This must be horrible. I know that you were just learning how to run before this happened, and I can't even imagine how much this is going to change your life. I hope that you have a good recovery from this injury, and that you sue the shit out of this band. Even if you were a fan, I understand it might be hard to sue a band that you like, but this man's negligence has cost you greatly. You should sue for them to pay your medical bills and for pain and suffering and for any loss of work if you had a job at the time before you got hurt. They owe you a lot of money. $5,000 is not enough. Even if you can afford not to, you really should sue them to set a precedent for anybody who would break those rules in the future. To do the same thing that John did and hurt somebody. Having that lawsuit could prevent something like that from happening. And it should be known that there are a lot of social, professional, and financial consequences for doing something like that, for breaking a rule that is meant to keep everyone safe. I wish you the best after this horrible incident, and if anybody watching this wants to donate to Bird's recovery, the link to her GoFundMe will be the first link in the bottom of my description, where I have all of the links I used for this video. Just want to say thanks for watching my video, guys. This one got to me a little bit just because it's local. I feel horrible that this has happened, and I just really didn't like the way that the band responded to it. Their statement was so wrong, and then the fact that they just never responded after. They never made any more posts at all about that or anything. They're just radio silent after making a statement that completely mischaracterized the way that things happen. So I just hope there are some consequences for this man for changing this woman's life forever. Unchangeable. You cannot do anything to get back what is lost. I feel so upset that they would downplay the safety of others when they have such a duty of responsibility to those people to keep them safe. And I just really hope that she can get justice in whatever way that means to her.